Hey everyone, it is great to see you all again. Do you have a problem where you get to a beautiful location, maybe one that you've never been before, and are having trouble finding a subject amidst the grand landscape that surrounds you? Maybe you're in a place with so much around you that it's hard to find one thing to frame up, or maybe you're just in your backyard trying to find a composition that is interesting and eye-catching. Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you 5 easy ways you're able to not only find a subject, but put together a composition around said subject without having to scout out a location beforehand. And stick around to the end where I show you how I lined up this shot to keep you, the viewer, immersed in the scene. I hope you all enjoy.
My name is Jalen Oban. I'm a landscape photographer and educator based in the Pacific Northwest. I create weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you with me on location to give you a behind-the-scenes look at what I do. If you enjoy the content, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribe.
Before we start, let's establish what exactly a subject is or how you can think about it while you're looking around on location. Now, this can be somewhat subjective. However, I feel that a subject of a given photograph refers to the point of interest or what you, the photographer, wants the viewer to see when they see your photo. So the very first thing I do when I get on location is to simply look around. But it's more than just that. Try to truly embrace what's around you, and instead of looking at everything as a whole and taking everything in at once, try to pick and choose what exactly you like about the scene you're in. Remember, you don't have to fit everything you see into a single image. This can easily lead to a clash of interests or unbalance in your scene. Start broad and slowly get more and more specific with what you like this scene, for example. Obviously, the reason I came to this location was for the waterfall. But when taking a closer look and really analyzing the scene, I was able to figure out what I specifically liked about the waterfall. I really liked the shape of it and how it fell down into an almost perfectly still pond of water. So, starting very simple, I took this photo. Really focused only on those 2 aspects of the falls, the shape of it and where it lands. Like I mentioned, think of your subject as what you want the viewer to see when they look at your photo, whether that be literally or figuratively. For the waterfall example, I wanted the viewer to look at the literal waterfall and focus on nothing but that. However, we are able to build on this. Take a look at this photo and tell me what your eye sees first when analyzing the scene. Is it the flowers, maybe the mossy rocks, or maybe your eye notices the waterfall right away? Either way, no matter where your eyes started, I can guess, or I know, that they naturally ended up looking at the waterfall. This is because I used other elements in the scene along with a complementary crop and post-processing to lead your eye to what I wanted you to see, the subject. In this case, the waterfall. Notice how every aspect of the photo flows together and seamlessly leads your eye to where I want it to go. I strategically placed with my camera the flowers on either side of the waterfall, one further away from the other to act like stepping stones. I also intentionally used a vertical crop here to exaggerate and complement the flow of the water and the direction of the flowers. Now, this also works for scenes maybe more abstract that doesn't have a specific or literal subject or object to focus on. For me, this means using light and possibly a telephoto lens to frame up a particular part of your scene to create different patterns or characters in a different way. Like this image where I framed up the light and post-process to exaggerate that light to give a subject to this image. To me, this looks like a person with some sort of hat on with their mouth open, maybe screaming at or breathing the rainbow. I also placed and cropped the photo to have the head and the rainbow on either side to create a sort of balance. You could imagine that if either of those aspects weren't there, it would be a much less interesting photo. So now that we know that the subject of your photo is the main thing you want the viewer to see when they look at your image, what are some ways we can compose to highlight our subject? Well, first, like I mentioned before, just shoot and frame what you like about the scene without worrying about any other factors. Whether that means a straight-on central composition with some light hitting your subject, or a scene with a lot of negative space that really adds scale or mystery to your scene. For this image, there isn't much to see other than the granite and the tree, but I also used another technique that we'll discuss later that helps give interest to the subject. Can you guess what it is? The next thing you can do is frame your subject. Take this image from last week's vlog, for example. If you missed that, it'll be linked up above. In this instance, I almost have 2 subjects, but in order to have them blend together, I aligned myself with this patch of flowers and found a divot in the bush to cup the mountain and the Milky Way. Also notice how the flowers are out of focus as to not distract from our subject, but also appear to be pulling into the mountain, leading your eye to where I want them to end up. Building on that, let's go back to this image. Can you guess what helps lead your eye to the tree? Could it be the leading lines in the rock that brings your eye straight to the center of the photo and end up at the subject? Obviously, this is a blatant example of it, but yes, using leading lines to guide your viewer's eye straight into the photo to create a sense of direction and can be very immersive. Using the flow of water and a long exposure can really help create leading lines to enhance your composition as well. You do want to be careful here, however, with all of these techniques, but especially this one. You don't want to lead your viewer's eye to the edge of your photo or out of the scene. You want to keep people looking at your picture and immersed inside your location as long as possible. If you have distractions or interests at the edges of your image, this is telling the viewer that you want them to look to the edge and ultimately away or outside of your photo. However, this does not mean that you always have to have your subject in the middle of your image, like this image. Using the framing method but also balancing the scene, I was able to lead your eye to the brightest clover out of the rest. This is because the clover is almost encapsulated by different plants and was being hit by the light. This is also a balanced image because the framed bright clover on the right has the same energy or power as the more dense, darker clovers on the left. Using a soft but tight vignette is one of my favorite ways to bring attention to certain areas of my scene. How about for this one? Why do you think your eyes naturally sees and focuses on this water droplet when it's surrounded by many others, even some that are brighter? This is because it is different and stands out as something that you may recognize, creating interest. Not only is this water droplet the biggest, it is also the only one that is split between the leaf, leaving a dark spot in the middle. Using my imagination and some dodging and burning, I felt that the droplet represented an eye of a reptile or a dragon. This acted as my subject. This is also another example of why using a crop intentionally can be so important. Looking again, what would you say is the most prominent shape in this photo? I would say circles or spheres, and those circles or spheres are very evenly rounded. Put sides to that, and I think it makes a square. Using a square crop really complemented the evenness of the entire scene. Also, placing my subject off-center evens out the composition by having the subject and cluster of other droplets balance each other out. Looking for repeated patterns or shapes can be extremely helpful when trying to frame up your shot. Patterns like V's or triangles are very pleasing to the eye and catches people's attention. Searching for different perspectives can also be a great way to enhance your composition. Remember, humans see everything at eye level. Try getting down low or up high and grab a different view of what most people see when they visit somewhere. One of the best ways you're able to add interest into your composition is adding a foreground that complements the subject of your scene. Getting down low, using reflections, or like we talked about earlier, finding something that complements your point of interest can really build your compositional skills. Here, I used the rocks in the water as leading lines to capture your attention and bring your eye into the beautiful sky in Yosemite Valley. As you can see, I got low enough to the water to just capture the tips of the granite walls that were being highlighted by the sunset. I also made sure to get low enough to the ground to capture as little of the distracting midground as I could. Using a vignette and darkening the top of the sky, I was able to capture a scene that grabs your attention, takes you in, and gives you no reason to wander your eyes away from the subject or out of the scene. So I hope you all learned something from this week's video. If you didn't already know, I started a Discord server for the entire community to come together, share photos, and give feedback. And then at the end of every month, I will be selecting one of your photos as a monthly contest winner. Other than that, if you could subscribe to my weekly newsletter for weekly updates, and then for vlog, blog, and other video updates, if you could like and follow my Facebook page. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.